5th Annual Guild of Music Supervisors State of Music in Media Conference.
My name is Yvette Metoyer. I'm a music supervisor with Supervision. I've been in the biz for about 10 years. And my first gig with the company was as an assistant, a music assistant, working on the show Breaking Bad for AMC. And learned a lot along the way. It was a very fun ride. And now we have a spin-off called Better Call Saul that we're working on as well. But we have just a lot of creative ideas and just how to work with people. I learned a lot working with this team. To my right, we have Alison Sieh, who is also a music supervisor, would you call yourself? Uh-huh. And before you've been in the business for how long now? 11 years? Mm-hmm. Okay, and I read that you had worked on America's Top Model prior to being in biz, and in what capacity?
Yeah, so I was an intern with 10 by 10 Entertainment on America's Next Top Model. I did reality TV for a while. I was a music coordinator for America's Best Dance Crew and some other MTV shows, and then somehow stumbled myself into trailers and haven't looked back, so.
And that's at Aspect, right?
Yeah, I've been at Aspect for 2.5 years-ish, and I was at Trailer Park for about 4 or 5 before.
Great. And next we have Aileen Valencia, who is a creative music director, currently working at Reservoir Media, and she has been in the business for how long?
For Sync, about, I guess, 8 years, and then I spent some years on
Wow. And so you worked on both sides of the music, so you worked in publishing, on the publishing side as well?
Yeah, I worked in, publishing first, copyright, and then I was at Sony Music label side for 7 years, Sync, their Sync shop, and then I just transferred to Reservoir last year. And Reservoir is mainly publishing, but we also do have masters.
And previously you were working at Sony Sync shop, right?
Yes.
And that was the label side?
Label side, yes.
So primarily you worked with major companies, right? And this one's a little bit smaller, I would say, comparatively speaking, Reservoir.
Yes, probably, I want to say under 40 people. We're based in New York. I'm based here, but we're based in New York, and now we have offices in Toronto, Los Angeles, and Nashville, and London. So we're growing for sure. But yes.
So having worked with both majors and smaller companies, can you list maybe one or two differences of your experiences between the major companies and the smaller ones?
Sure. Sony Music, they had all kinds of music, all genres. So we had a lot to offer for everyone. For music supervisors that came to us. For Reservoir, it's a little more limited, but granted, I'm very lucky that we have a really great roster. We have a lot of pop music, we have a lot of hip hop, singer-songwriters. So it's definitely a diverse, but we only have about 120,000 copyrights and about 20,000 masters, I believe. And that's fairly new, the masters. I'm sorry, we've always had Philly Groove, and then now we have masters from Crystal Circles.
Great. And Patrick, the brave soul, Patrick Clancy, who's here with amongst the ladies here, has just landed at Lyric House. Also as a music creative director. And tell us a little bit about your history.
Actually, I started at ASCAP as an intern not too long ago. It was 6 or so years ago. 6 years ago. And I worked with composers. I made sure that they got paid. I made sure that the cue sheets looked right, and kind of was the fix-all on the creative side. I was also on the Rapid Q Advisory Board, so I was studios, and I started to learn film and TV side through that and through a lot of other friends that were in sync around the same time, all starting around the same time because we all went to school together. And then I made my way to Westwood Music Group, where I was preaching the gospel of a somewhat not known at the time UK-based library, and I got thrown into trailers, I got thrown into all kinds of media that I didn't really know that well, and I ended up loving it. And I tried to help connect the dots, get in as many searches as possible, and from there I moved on to Primary Wave, which is, Primary Wave, there's something crazy happening over there because they have brought on so many insane catalogs, and they also have a lot of new writers, so they're working with contemporary and classic, and so I was just going to school, like learning about all of these little nuances and facets about being on that side. And then from there, I got an offer to be at Lyric House, which I'm really excited about. I'm only 2 weeks in, so it's pretty nuts. It's been a whirlwind for sure. Already done, I was telling everybody here, probably maybe 30 or so searches and stuff, so I've just jumped in head first. But we're a sync-based publisher, custom music house that we've just done really well in TV, trailers, and promos. And we're making our way through with ads as well. We just landed something for Jeep like weeks ago. That was really an opportunity for our people. So.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we are here, well, first question is, amongst the group, how many folks are with either music libraries or music licensing companies? Publishers? How about labels? Great, nice mix. So the purpose of our workshop today is to review the process of creating a music brief for music that folks on the creative end, music supervision, how we build a creative brief, how we interact with producers for film directors, and we fulfill their creative needs, musically speaking. How do we do that? How do we reach out to you? And how do we translate what they're looking for into language that you understand so that you can pull the best music for a particular spot? So our team here today will give a little bit of background about each of our processes. I come from a television background, so my process is probably going to be a little bit different from Alison's. But just to kind of give you a start, generally speaking, when I'm in the middle of an episode, we do music spots. I don't know how many people are familiar with music spotting sessions. Okay, quite a few of you. So music spots are basically, after an episode is blocked and fully formed, basically, we will watch, it's usually the composer, executive producer, music supervisor, the editor of that episode. We all are in a room together, we watch the episode and we talk about music. Where music will go, whether it's going to be score, whether it's going to be source music. And we do it, scene by scene from beginning to end. And that kind of gives us the groundwork of what we need to go back to our office to and start pulling music for. So, from my perspective, I will take that information, go back to my office, and create a brief. But I have to kind of talk about the tone of the show, the tone of the episode, the characters are important, and the overall arc of the story can be important to that scene in that episode as well. So I'll talk a little bit about what specifically I'll mention in my brief, but I'd like Alison to kind of explain, what is your process when you're interacting with your client and what they're looking for?
Trailers are a whole different beast, and every project's kind of a little different, so it's hard to fully pinpoint it, but typically a client will get a hold of of our creative internal team. So we have creative directors, we have producers, and they kind of let them know, hey, this movie's coming down the pipeline, it's in this stage, it could be, 2 years out, it could be an animated movie that's just a bunch of sketches. It just kind of depends on the process, if we're cutting a teaser, or if we're working on the TV campaign. But they give as much information as they're able to give us in terms of what they're looking for us to cut. If they have specifics about it, if they have specific budgets about anything, the actual piece they're looking for. And then that kind of gets trickled down. So depending on the project, we might all get together within the company and we're sitting in a brainstorming meeting with the producer, with the editor who's actually going to cut the spot, with our graphics team, with our writers, and we kind of all break down this movie and decide if we're feeling certain things and getting all the information from our clients and kind of talking it out. Sometimes it's, a lot more direct. We absolutely have to use this Missy Elliott, some Missy Elliott song, so, it's like we're not gonna have a big meeting about that, just go pull Missy Elliott, But so it just kind of depends on the project and how big of a movie it is, or how small the movie it is, or if it's a promo or commercial, a video game. We kind of work on all kinds of different things, and then I get as much information as I can. I go back to my desk, and my team and I, we pull following the kind of instructions that we were given. Sometimes we're lucky, we get to sit in on actual client calls so we can hear directly from the client. Sometimes we can't for whatever reason. And so then we provide music pulls to our, typically our editor, producers, and then things either work or don't work, and we kind of go through the process from there. And sometimes the directive that, I'm sure this happens to you all the time, what we were told, we did exactly what we were told, and then they put it to picture and go like, this is just does not work. Let's completely, 180 pivot to something else, and so you just kind of follow that, path until it lands you with some sort of product in the end, and then from there it could be 90 versions later, and maybe you'll see it, maybe you won't, but hopefully you will. That's kind of the rough gist.
Yeah, you mentioned budget, and I would say that's probably like one of the biggest components of our job. And using Missy as an example, there are often times where a producer might request a certain artist or a certain song, but we do not have the budget, for that artist. And so, we're back in the office and we're pulling music ideas. We're like, okay, who sounds like her, or who has like that same kind of vibe that, is maybe 50% less, less expensive. And obviously someone like Missy is a unique artist, right? So there's not a lot of folks that really sound like her. And so sometimes, trying to replace a song or replace an artist idea can be really tricky. And so that's why, we turn to our mavens, like Aileen and Patrick, to kind of help us if we find ourselves in a bind. So what we are going to do today is, Alison and I have created 2 unique briefs, one based upon an HBO promo spot, and another one based upon a scene in an episode of the Amazon series Sneaky Pete. And so, based upon those 2 spots, we have created a brief creative description of the 2 pieces, and have given enough information that we think both Patrick and Aileen can work with, and their responsibility was to go and pull some songs based upon this brief. We also have the actual video footage of both the promo spot and the clip of Sneaky Pete, which Patrick and Aileen have not seen yet, so this will be a first for all of us. And then later we'll also see the final version of both clips with the music that was ultimately chosen by production. So this will be pretty fun. But Alison, do you want to explain the brief that you have today?
Yes, so I opted to go with an HBO promo. We do a few of these a year. Then sure, if you guys have HBO, you've seen these kind of promos that kind of pop up after the show is done on HBO, or maybe on HBO Go, that kind of let you know, if you stick with HBO, this is what you're going to see in the next couple of months. They're usually high energy, and it's kind of little clips of each of the movies or TV shows that are coming down the the pipeline, and if you stay with your subscription, you're gonna get all this cool stuff. And they range. Sometimes they are extremely epic and dramatic. It's huge trailer music. It's, you know, big, bold, and then sometimes they are very fun and exciting. It's lots of comedies. It's lots of jokes and stop downs for dialogue, and so that's what my creative brief is about, and I try to let them know kind of the rough gist of this being this type of image spot, and that we were kind of looking hopefully for maybe some kind of unknown, unused song. Didn't have to be a big recognizable thing. We had about a 20K budget, but they didn't give us all the specifics, which often happens on my end. I'm not so sure about your end if your budgets are 100%, but sometimes we just only get a rough idea of how long something might be airing, about how much money they have. So we just try to give these guys as much information as we possibly can. And then, you know, when we need it by, or, you know, sometimes we have like references of previous spots we've done. So that's what I kind of kicked over to these guys. I'm excited to see what you do.
Well, I'll jump into Sneaky right quick too. We'll do both of ours, and then we'll jump into Patrick and Eileen's process as well. So for Sneaky Pete, we have a scene that's it's very stylized, very slow moving shots. It's a little bit languid, but it's very fun. And we had our work cut out for this one, cut out for ourselves for this one, and we definitely needed some help, and budget would be a factor for this particular show. And so for my process regarding the briefs, I try to be as detailed as possible, and I wonder sometimes if it's too much information, like if people prefer not to read through.
Never. The more information, the better.
But I you know, certainly try to answer every question somebody might have. And in this instance, generally what I'll do is include like a brief synopsis of the show, because I know there's so much, you know, television that's out there, and that it's impossible to really keep track of what everyone is working on. So I'll try to give like a brief synopsis of the show, and then give a brief description of how the scene is playing out. Sometimes with that, the challenge can be is if the show is very protective about leaks, we might not be able to give much information. Certainly no characters, no plot points, nothing of that sort. But in the events that we are able to share some information about the scene and characters, we'll do that. And then we'll talk about, you know, the tone of the sequence. I think tone is very important when it comes to television. And so, you know, we want to know if we're trying to come across as the scene should be fun, or if it should be sad, or if it should be emotional or not, or just straightforward without emotion at all. So all those little things we try to touch upon. In the midst of creating this brief, what we'll also do is just kind of pull artist ideas and song ideas that we might be able to pitch as options to production, or examples for our colleagues to work off of. So we'll pull, you know, certain songs and certain artists, and we'll include links so that they can kind of click on them and you know, check it out if they want to. And these examples are usually based upon conversations that we've had with production. Sometimes it could be a left field idea that we might have come up with that we think, you know, could work. And we'll include that too, even though we might not have touched upon it with production. It's just something that we might have found interesting and unique in its own right, that we might want to travel down that road as well. So we'll include that example also. And then also, you know, deadlines, you know, that's always important. You know, if we need something right away, you know, we'll say it needs to be here ASAP. And budgets, obviously budgets are important. The one thing that I have noticed in some of the responses that I get back is that, you know, some songs will be pitched for a certain budget. It's like I'll include tiers, budget tiers. So like between this amount and this amount, we can clear that for our budget. And sometimes we'll get pitched a song and there's a co-publisher or a co-master involved, or there's like 10 different writers. And they'll say, oh, we can clear the song, we can clear our portion for your budget, but I don't know about anyone else who's involved with the song. Meanwhile, you've got like major publishers attached to it, and the likelihood that that song is going to clear for our budget is probably slim. So anyway, and so that's just about it. So we kind of put as much information as we can that we think might be helpful, and then we'll reach out to our colleagues Patrick and Aileen. And Aileen, why don't you tell us, once you receive briefs, like what's your process?
So once I receive the brief, I read it over a couple of times or more, and make sure I assess all the information given to me. Budget is a big thing. I want to make sure that I'm giving you the right songs and not make it a problem for you later. It always helps me to have reference tracks, just because then I can kind of try to match it, whatever I'm familiar with already in our catalog, or just search it, match it. Sometimes I play it simultaneously, and just to see if it works, or just get the feel of it. And then just really read over, just instructions, like what percent of the genre, if all genre, then, what feel, what mood, things like that. And then once I'm ready, then I'll look through, and if it's a lower budget, I actually, just because we're a smaller company, I actually talk to my clearance person and make sure that it's okay with them. And then I send it over. But yeah, definitely, it always helps me to have a reference track, if you can give me that, budgets, and especially if it's a campaign, or I would definitely need like the terms, like the territories and things like that, just to assess what the value of it is.
Yeah, the terms, I would imagine, Alison, are very important. Have you ever worked on a project where the terms hadn't been established yet, but they wanted you to build that spot sooner than later? And how do you go about that?
I would say we do end up in a situation quite often where I don't have all the information, and I'm probably not going to get it until we're kind of getting closer to D-Day on that. So it's sometimes kind of a bummer that I have to be so wishy-washy of last time we had about this much money. Usually they do this, because they're not always 100% established on. Sometimes it's just supposed to be online only, then they love how it turned out, and boom, we're airing it on TV. Or the plan was that it's going to be bigger than it is, and then they get lots of great spots and they offer some to air in certain places. So it isn't always 100%. And then sometimes, I'm not always dealing directly with the studio, and sometimes those questions don't always get answered. So, we might be waiting on information, but we don't necessarily have the time to wait. So I'm giving you as much as I can, and then we'll follow up as soon as I get more info, things like that. So it's just kind of, the train is always moving, and sometimes we just have to keep moving even though we don't have all the information. But yeah, that happens a lot, unfortunately.
Interesting. I can imagine that it does. Patrick, have you been in a situation where you've been given a brief and maybe not all of the details were there? And if so, like, how do you go about pulling music for it?
I usually play it safe. If it's something that we have total control of, then if the opportunity is good, not knowing anything about what the fee is, or like there's a lot of times that just happens. It's like, well, we don't know what the fee is, especially in trailers, because like you said, that stuff kind of comes later, and the money side you sometimes don't deal with. And so for us, I'll get it, I'll look, and if it just seems like, historically a certain track or a certain writer is a little finicky about price or whatever, then I won't push that as much. If it's the perfect song, I have to pitch it, and I try to go and pre-clear it as much as possible. Just say, I'm going for this. I mean, we just had a conversation last week about another opportunity, And we had a co-writer situation, and I was like, I want to make sure that we're good. And if we're not, no worries, I'm just not going to pitch it. But next time, now I'll know where the rate is. So I was taught by some very wonderful bosses in the past. You always double check. You always try to do your due diligence as much as possible. But if they don't have a budget, then you can be, it's almost a little frame that you just pitch good ideas. And if it doesn't work out, you know, you haven't promised anybody anything. You're trying to get it out there as best as you can. And, you know, just don't pitch crazy catalog that is always impossible. I went from a library where you say yes to everything, and then I went to a publishing house that has all kinds of deals, and you have to be careful and protective of what that legacy is. And coming back to, we say yes to a lot of things, but we make sure that it's appropriate because we're not at the library range, we're at a premier, custom, small but mighty music house. So we do say yes to more things, but that's because we understand that those budgets work. So now, in my case, I'm able to just pitch things, and I make sure that, okay, our co-writers, whatever, go through that stage, and just so I know it's in the back of my mind. And then if opportunities come up, the other half of my job is to pitch the idea to the writers. Like, I have to have everybody else on board, or to the label, or whatever. I have to be I have to be the cheerleader for everything. But yeah, so that's basically it. I try to be mindful, but also if it's perfect and it makes sense and I did my work, it'll work itself out, and I'll do my best to make sure I can close that up and make it clear.
I actually piggyback on something that you just said, because that was so smart. I don't know if everybody knows this, but a lot of times, the trailer world, we aren't the ones that are actually going to end up licensing it at the end of the day. The studio's going to take care of that. So a lot of times they don't want us really speaking on their behalf. They're going to handle their budgets, they're going to handle their numbers, and so that means that I might not always be able to give an exact number or the exact licensing terms, things like that. So it does kind of leave you guys in a position of just making a decision that you feel like is best for your company. And so often I will get, you know, a pitch back to me that is just like, I think these are great. I'm gonna let you know these potential flags. These are no, you know, they might be a little bit on the pricier side. This is whatever, but anything they're able to kind of provide me in terms of information, so I can take that back to my team and go, hey, I think this song is perfect, but I do know they license kind of high, or they were in this, you know, other song was licensed in this and it went for X amount of dollars, just putting this kind of on your radar. But ultimately, creative will kind of be the deciding factor. It will go off to the studio, and then they kind of are the ultimate decider on whether or not that's going to fit in with their budgets. It's not everything that we do, it just really depends because we have all ranges of projects, but when it comes to kind of the big major studio stuff, the studio will be handling that kind of portion of it.
I want to make sure that, because I didn't actually talk about that, my email is not blank with just a link to the music. It does have those notes. A lot of it will be something as specific as, okay, well, here's a track, we think it's amazing. It usually is in, I don't like to give dollar amounts, but I'm like, pick high mid. But we're the management, they're a management client. I'll tell the manager that we have to do this. Or, this album is brand new. We have to push this. We're getting marching orders from everybody, and they will be negotiable. They will be friendly to whatever offer that you send, unless it's unreasonable. And let me decide that. And then myself and anybody above me in my sync team, like, we will do the lifting if it makes sense, if it's the right thing. But yeah, a lot of that is just like these tiny little notes next to every song if I can get away with it and say like, oh yeah, the songwriter's over at this publishing company, no, it's a little difficult. Give us a heads up. If you're really feeling it, I will make sure to reach out and talk to that clearance person and say, just see it. I just want you to see it, and you just tell me it's possible.
I
And that's great that you do that. You had just mentioned, Patrick, that you and Aileen had spoken, I guess, earlier this week or last week about a particular song that you share.
It's so funny stuff.
Is that a regular occurrence for you though? Like if you are pitching a song that there's a co-writer or co-publisher that another company is attached to, is that a standard for you to reach out to your counterpart with that company and say, hey, you know, I'm interested in possibly pitching a song. What do you think? Is that standard for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I have done that. Sometimes, you know, everyone like usually is behind the screen. I'll land them or the label just to gauge if I'm not familiar with the artist. Then to gauge, you know, if they would agree to that type of fee and if they're wanting to push them or not. Yeah, and it usually works out. Sometimes it doesn't. But
It's okay. We'll live to fight another day.
it didn't work out.
But we also get information. Like now I know there's a limit, and so the next opportunity will come where it's at that limit. I'll be like, I feel comfortable pitching it, and I'll be able to reach out and say, hey, I pitched for this. I know that you didn't want to go at this level, but this was at this level. So, right, like that's something that I always look at as optimistically as possible. Even just as I'm like getting accustomed to my new catalog that I'm repping, we'll come across a song and we'll be like, oh well, this is a co-writer and this publisher's usually difficult. Well, I guess I'm gonna go over there and take some of lunch. Find out what they want, what's their limits, what makes sense, what's policy. You know, like I hope you all saw Pat Woods do her thing at her panel because she is notoriously she fights for, you know, to get things at a good
She fights for the artist.
She fights for the artist, and some people that don't understand her are just like, oh, she's really aggressive about fees. I'm like, she's doing the thing that, you know, everybody should be doing, but she is in a position to like fight for everybody. And so now when I'm working on something that has Warren Chappell or another big publishing house, I just know to reach out. What's the worst that can happen? They just tell me my parameters, and now I can work even faster.
Well, I think the key is really just about knowledge. I think, you know, having the knowledge helps everybody. I mean, this is an ecosystem, and having the knowledge is helpful to everybody involved. You know, us being able to deliver information for you so that you can pull music, you can find out budgets, you know, that's very important. And likewise, you know, having the information where you know, this song, it's fantastic, we think it's like perfect for your project. The budget may be a little bit shaky, we're just giving you a heads up that there is a co-publisher, co-writer involved. We'll try to, you know, help push it through, but it's really just about getting that information. It's very helpful because, you know, at the end of the day, there's sometimes we have huge deadlines that we're trying to hit, and sometimes it could be just a few hours. And, you know, if a song is being pitched for a certain fee, and then we find out that there's multiple co-writers, you know, later down the line, or multiple publishers, it makes it a little bit trickier for us.
Transparency, I think, is just whatever you know, please tell me, and whatever I know, I'm going to tell you, and that way none of us end up in a situation at the end. And obviously things come up that you didn't know were going to come up or whatever, but even at that moment, even if it's after, you know, hey, you thought it was going to fit in budget and you just got a call and whatever, pick up the phone, call us, because that just, you know, it builds a great rapport between, you know, us together, and things happen, and music business is a crazy place, and there's just some things that are completely outside of anyone's control, and I think it's just how you handle it. You know, which I think boils down to anything. It's like if you're at a restaurant and your food never comes out. It's like how they handle it. It means you'll come back again if you felt like you were well taken care of. And I think that same thing applies for us. You know, we all know how crazy this world can be, and it's just about how well you handle issues when they come up, and how open and honest you are about things. We want it to work out for you and us and everybody, and ultimately the artist. I think we're all in this because we want great music to be out in the world. So, you know, however we can make that easier for each other, I think is the end goal.
It's all about trust. If I trust a client or a music supervisor, then it's so easy. I can pitch what I need to pitch. I can tell them things like insider information that really applies to that project, and it helps everybody. Because now I'm not worried. I'm not like, oh, are they like going like lowballing us on something? No, they're in the same position as we are. This is the hand that's dealt. We're gonna try to do our best to accommodate them because that's our brains. We're the same. You know, the world of sync is so small, so we have to be good to everybody at all times. And it's a good thing to be a part of it and to never think that like people are out to get you. You go and you do what you need to do, and you let people in on what's happening.
Totally agree. So we only have a few more minutes left. We'll do a couple of questions first. Yes.
It doesn't mention anywhere whether or not stems are required. So does that mean automatically assuming that they need stems, or do they just not need stems?
I don't know if you all heard that, but the comment was that either creative brief, the need for stems was not mentioned. So the question is, would we have needed them or not? So Alison, I'll let you take that.
I would say in this day and age, it's like, for trailers, kind of just like unsaid. Like, it would be really great. It doesn't obviously 100% eliminate your track, but we're constantly pulling apart music and putting it back together. It just definitely makes it easier. But I guess I would say I don't ever include it. I think it feels like this, you guys pretty much all the time are pretty prepared for it. If it's an older track, that wasn't a thing then, so we kind of get it and we make things work.
And I think for television, my company, for our purposes, we have really good music editors. So they can typically, finesse and tweak as much as we need them to. On a rare occasion, we might ask for stems if we're commissioning an artist for a main title. And we'll ask them to deliver, the finished version of the song as well as the stems so that we can play around with it later.
I think instrumental a cappella are the biggest, most needed. I feel like all the individual stem down can be great. We don't need for every track,
Any other questions? Yes.
Hi. When you're working for a smaller or maybe even a new company, what's the best way to put yourself on in that to receive briefs to begin?
What you're doing, basically coming to events like this is kind of how you meet everyone. A lot of music supervisors are here, so it's really just connecting with folks. And it's a small community, and it's a pretty close community, so we're all kind of engaging with everyone else. The question was, for smaller independent music libraries or music licensing companies, how does one connect with music supervisors so that they can get their music, heard? But yeah, I recommend events like this and different mixers is the best way, really. I think the personal connection is always the best way.
Hi, I'm Sarah Local Artist. I have a question about the turnaround. The briefs will say end of day, but by that time when you have already maybe got 10 songs, you should know when so maybe you be first to the, respond with the right songs?
So the question is, if you get a brief and it says a turnaround, it's like ASAP or end of day, something that's really tight, the need to be the first to yeah. For my purposes anyway, if it's a tight turnaround, I would say yes, the quicker the better. However, it's always best to make sure your I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Licensing information that's in there, co-writers, making sure that if you're working with co-writers, they're all on board if they're attached, and that they will approve, the use of that song, because it's fine if you're the first one, but if there's hurdles to clearing it does no one any good.
And I would say, we probably built ourselves in a little extra time. If I said end of day, that means I'm probably giving it to somebody either late in the day or tomorrow morning or something. Like, I've given myself some time to take your stuff and actually go through it and compile I want to make sure that I'm giving whoever I'm giving it to what I feel like is the best for this project. So I've hopefully given you an honest and fair timeline. So obviously sooner would be better. My day is going to get crazy and I want to get it done. But if you were, doing something or you have something that you could get to me later, I'd rather have you give me what you think is going to be best,
And you can always ask.
Yeah,
You can always do a follow-up question and say, hey, I know you said, in a day, but, if I got this to you the next morning or, a couple hours later, is that okay? And, for me, I'd probably say fine because the whole process of downloading everything takes a while as well. So, if we're getting music by, let's say, 5 p.m., it's probably going to take another 5 hours just to download everything and load it into the system and listen to it. So.
I will usually add a note saying, I'm trying to pre-clear something. Here's a few ideas. If these other ones pan out, is it all right to send it at this time? Or what's your absolute deadline? And I promise to stick to it as best as possible.
My name is Paul Williams. I'm an artist. I'm just wondering, when you all are briefing for a spot, and let's say you have a specific artist and a specific song that you love, you're married to it, but there's some politics and you can't clear it. So you need to find a replacement for that song. But you also don't want an artist that's ripping the song. So if you're replacing this song that you love, it's perfect for that spot. What elements can that replacement song have that will give it more of a win for you? Is it the tempo? Is it a vibe? How do you replace that song that you're already married to? What elements are you looking for in a new song?
I'd say tone is probably whatever the emotional component of it. It might be a lyric thing, if we were very specific about a particular lyric, then we probably need to have something related to that world. Tempo and energy. If this spot's already cut and they loved it like that, you sending a really slow version is probably not going to help, even if it kind of is the same vibe of that artist. But obviously, yes, it's a tricky situation. You can't get things too close. You don't, as an artist, I'm sure, want to rip off another artist either. But I think, you hear a certain artist, their feeling and the tone of a track. And that's really, I think, the emotional connection to it is obviously pretty heavily key to whatever it is. And I think production value. A lot of times we were replacing because of budgetary concerns, etc. So it doesn't matter if it's this great, amazing track that you just whipped up but didn't have time to mix it well, and because that's just not gonna, fly. We're probably on a tight turnaround situation. So we're looking for something with equal quality value as well.
It looks like we are out of time, so thank you so much for coming out with us. And thank you to my fellow panelists, Alison, Aileen, and Patrick. Thank you so much.